we get some good news? Well, Trump's not popular.
We have seen how low the president's approval is on his handling of Iran. But it's not just that the numbers are low, it's how far they have fallen. CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton is here. There has been substantial movement over the years.
Get a better suit, Enton.
Substantial movement. You know, sometimes I look at the polling data and I find a surprising nugget, one that I honestly didn't think existed, but then I dug deep in enough and found it. And, you know, there was a great poll questions, feelings on Trump and Iran, handling Iran. You know, back in July of 2024, 53% of voters who said they were extremely motivated to vote said they were actually confident that Trump would be able to handle the situation in Iran. Look at where that number is now.
We deserve what's coming to us.
When it comes to his approval among the same group, just 29% of those who are extremely motivated to vote in these midterm elections approve of the job that President Trump is doing on Iran. That is a giant fall. I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about a 24-point fall in just 2 years. What was an advantage for President Trump going into the 2024 election amongst those who really wanted to turn out and vote has turned into a tremendous disadvantage this time around. Promises were made and promises were not kept. They were broken as far as those voters were concerned.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, because he would go on the stump and talk about Iran because it was a net positive issue for him now. Now it is a very negative issue for
Republicans wish he would keep quiet about it.
Okay, now foreign policy in general is an area where in the past Republicans have seen more support than Democrats.
What they usually don't focus on in these polls is if the voters have changed their mind. Well, thankfully, with how bad the climate's going to start to be in a couple of months, it's very possible that all previous political alignments are going to be wiped away in the new age of death and suffering that is to come. You know, it's kind of like it's kind of like a Gurren Lagann bit. You know, you have one challenge set in front of you, and then you realize the scale was so much bigger than you ever thought. Really, the only meaningful political alignments pretty soon are going to be what is to be done about the dying world. That's pretty much all we're going to be talking about. The Republican Party, of course, will only advocate for mass death faster, but, you know, it's possible that some of the... I don't know, we'll see what happens to food prices next year. I love how upbeat Vosh always is. Hey, I'm just telling it like it is.
Where do things stand now?
Yeah, if you see these numbers and you're a Republican running for the United States Congress in these midterm elections, you might say, hey, this won't...
Is it just me, or is the end times talk ramped up last stream? Since last stream, the only reason you hear it primarily from me is because everyone else is a coward who has buried their head in the sand. This is an idle speculation, okay? Trust me, everyone who knows anything about what the climate is doing right now is freaking the fuck out. I'm the only one talking about it because I'm not afraid to compromise the... Well, I'm going to be real here. Compromise your emotional well-being by telling you the truth. Everyone else wants to smooth you over with comforting tales of how the midterms are going to go poorly for the Republicans. But I know what comes after that. Or before that, actually. The effects of El Nino 2026/2027 are going to hit before November. We're already experiencing it now, of course, but it's going to get so much worse. A lot of people won't talk about it because they're afraid. They're afraid of what it means. They're aware of the fact that a lot of their personal, petty political projects, not to alliterate too much, are kind of meaningless in the face of oblivion. But, you know, certainly liberals don't want to talk to you about it because everyone knows, even the liberals understand at this point, there are no solutions they can offer. There are none. There's no cap and trade, you know, net zero emissions, climate bullshit program they can advocate for that would make a difference at this point.
Impact me. Not the case. Just look at these numbers. Party trusted more in wars, conflicts, and terrorism. Back in January of 2025, look at this. Republicans were ahead by 18 points. A tremendous advantage. That advantage, because of President Trump, has turned into a disadvantage on a core key question that almost always favors Republicans. Now Democrats have a 2-point edge. That is a 20...
You were right, but you were also dooming about Hormuz. This is what I mean, and this is one of the reasons why people don't take climate change seriously. Everything I said about Hormuz was and still is correct. You're just impatient. You know, Roman Empire took centuries to fall apart, and you're here like what, month 4, month 5 of the Iran war, and you're like, well, the world hasn't ended yet. Things have been pushed down the line a bit because of China's extraordinary demand destruction, but China can't massage the numbers forever. Everything that's happening in Hormuz is still happening, you know? It's not good. Yeah. Everyone's got cocoa melon brain now, you know?
point move that we're seeing towards the Democrats. Down the Republicans go, because down goes President Trump. They are simpatico on this one.
And if you think this is something, Harry, where do Americans think this is headed? That's a real doozy.
And this, I think, perhaps is the most shocking thing about this, all these numbers I'm bringing you today. I mean, just look at these. Okay, say U.S. will reach a good deal with Iran ultimately. Just 27% of all voters believe that. And get this, just 41% of Republicans believe it. We are seeing below 50%.
So disgusting how CNN managed to turn polling data into gambling slop. I mean, yeah, it pretty much fits with everything else. We can't do polling right. We can't, we can't produce anything, can't build bridges, can't build missiles, can't do a single goddamn thing in this country. So, of course, we can't do news anymore. It makes sense. To this point, saying the U.S. will reach a good deal with Iran, we now arrive, agonizingly, but all the same, inexorably, to the point of all this, the point of this little bit here, which is that Iran has just flatly ruled out negotiations with Trump. After months and months of, Trump enabling financial rape of the country by allowing and incentivizing people to trade on oil futures, Iran has just flatly ruled out on U.S. talks. They are, as Masaigu put it earlier, they are now trying to Jimmy Carter us. They're essentially just saying that Trump is incapable of negotiating and that they're not even going to try. Iran rules out talks with Trump, says we'll wait till his term ends in 2029. Buddy, a lot of stuff is going to end by 2029. A lot of stuff. Trust me, Trump's term, if he even makes it that far, he can barely stay awake during his meetings, but, it's so straight closed till 2029. Well, I think much like the Francis Scott Key Bridge, it's very possible the Strait never reopens, actually. I think it's possible not only that we've permanently handed Iran power, but also that the old world with its open sea lanes and international law and order is done. And we're now entering a new dark age where dwindling populations compete over scarce resources. But, maybe not. Maybe everything will be fine, actually, in spite of all evidence to the contrary. Wouldn't that be nice? Iran has set out a protracted negotiating timetable designed to keep Donald Trump embroiled in the Iran conflict until the midterm elections. Oh, you cards, you crazy. Well, it's not like it makes a real difference. The Democrats can't even muster the political will to signal opposition to this war anyway. I can't tell if all this makes me want to go into public health more or less. When you get into public health, just make sure to focus on the classes that you'll be able to apply in 10 years rather than just in 2, right? So you're going to want to learn how to, fix broken bones and cure diseases using, I don't know, what did cavemen have access to? The world will need doctors. You just might be operating with less advanced technology than you think. Get into herbal remedies. Buy an everything book before they become expensive. You have no idea how bad it's going to get. Is anyone even talking about this?
President Trump with some strong words in the Oval Office for Iran, saying that he's demanding the regime compensate Americans killed or seriously wounded in Iranian attacks.
Phenomenal.
Commander-in-Chief basically responding to Iranian demands that the United States pay for war damages in their country. Alex Hogan live at the White House amid a report that President Trump...
What are the best career paths for someone who wants to be part of a solution, in your opinion? I don't know if I can answer that question for a variety of reasons.
Used a ruse to fly out of, or his whole security team, to get him out of Turkey because of an Iranian threat. We all remember the plane switch that happened on the way home from that trip, and now we're learning a lot of new details. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Martha. Absolutely. So what we're hearing from the president yesterday, he said that the U.S. Navy is sweeping and has swept the Strait of Hormuz of mines and that the U.S. could escalate. At the same time, we're learning more about this Iranian threat against the president last month. So the Washington Post reporting that despite this footage that we see here of President Trump in Turkey at the end of the NATO summit, climbing up.
We'll talk about his little plane escapade.
And boarding onto the Air Force One jumbo jet. He didn't actually take that plane. The report says that minutes later, the president was shuttled away.
We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about Trump's little Rube Goldberg machine escape in a little bit. Shoved his fat ass into a crate, into a catering cart. Genuinely,
The president said something that sounded obviously interesting over the weekend, and I think a lot of people might.
Not this. I don't want to see fucking Scarsborough.
Turning now to the Middle East, President Trump says the U.S. is only semi-negotiating with Iran as the regime unveils its new list of demands to open the Strait of Hormuz.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst is live in Tel Aviv with the latest. Good morning, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. With diplomatic efforts ongoing to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, Iranian officials are now making new demands. Iran's Supreme National Security Council issued a fresh...
You know, in a way, the oil crisis might actually help us a little bit with the climate change crisis, not only in the sense that it reduces our emissions, but also in the sense that it causes a kind of buffer apocalyptic conditions. Like, I think that it's probably the worst case scenario is that everything gets really, really bad all at once, but it's possible that some intermediary economic damage that merely leads to several 100 million deaths might prevent the sudden transition into a dark world that causes billions of deaths, you know?
Statement over the weekend calling on the United States to permanently end the war and compensate Iran for damages before the Strait would reopen. Iran's foreign minister says even if a deal is reached, it doesn't necessarily mean the Strait will stay open.
The talks with Oman are about the temporary route. We are almost very close to the result. Determining the route by Iran and Oman does not necessarily mean the reopening the Strait of Hormuz. That is dependent on other factors. The violations of the Memorandum of Understanding by America should be compensated.
With details still being worked out, the U.S. naval blockade remains in effect. U.S. Central Command says as of August 9th, CENTCOM has redirected 55 commercial vessels, disabled 2 and boarded 2 to ensure compliance. And President Trump told Axios on Sunday, we are low-keying it. We are only semi-negotiating with them. The president went on to say, we are just watching Iran with its huge inflation and the fact they have no money. Now, Vice President J.D. Vance spoke with Fox News over the weekend, indicating that U.S. pressure on Iran will continue until an agreement is reached.
They're hurting in a big way. They want this thing to be over. The question is whether they're able...
Remember, when things start to get really bad, this is the government we're stuck with. And even if it wasn't, what would we have? The Democrats? When have you seen them lead? There's no secret, more competent government. This is it. The Energy Department is just lying about how much oil is coming through. Jesus. Wright claims the 7-day average for Hormuz outbound oil is currently up to almost 9 million barrels per day. Oh my God. I mean, why not, right? They're lying at every other level.